So hello guys, I'm Murlipuram and I'm here with a session on basics of XML. So what is XML? XML stands for Extensible Markup Language. Now you guys might be thinking, what is markup language? Markup language in a computer text processing is a system for annotating a document in a way that is syntactically distinguishable from a text, meaning when the document is being processed for display, the markup language is not shown, rather the format of the text is shown. So it is basically a person who operates from the shadows, but is a pretty crucial part of the society. Now, XML is a text-based markup language which is derived from SGML, Standard Generalized Markup Language. XML is a markup language that defines a set of rules for encoding documents in a format that is both human readable and machine readable. So basically, XML is a language for making up a text or any other data. That means it helps different people, computers, systems understand each other on a certain level. It is quite important when it meant to be readable by both humans and computers. Now, what it basically means is that basically it is like a communicator between two people. Suppose you're talking to a foreigner from Japan, and he doesn't know English, so he's talking in Japanese, and you don't know Japanese. Now you're gonna need a communicator who's gonna translate what he's telling in Japanese to English and tell it to you, while he's gonna also do the same to the Japanese guy. So what it basically so XML is the communicator between humans, systems, and two other computers. So now let us dive into some history of XML, or rather extensible markup language. It is a markup language that you can use to create your own tags. It was created by W3C, or rather World Wide Web Consortium, in 1990s to overcome the limitation of HTML, the hypertext markup language that is the basis of all web pages. Now, what are the limitations of HTML? So the limitations of HTML is that it couldn't create its own tags. So it basically means that it had predefined tags. Now it also couldn't transfer data between two computers. So which made HTML pretty non-extensible. Now XML uses DTDs to define document types and the meaning of tags used in them. XML adopts convocations that makes it easy to parse, such that document entities are marked by both a beginning tag and an ending tag, such as begin with an ending tag of begin. Now let us talk about some uses of XML. It is used in web publishing with XML. You can store data. Once you store it, you can render the data for different viewers or devices based on the style sheet processing using the XSL, extensible style language. It is rather like CSS for HTML, so we have XSL for XML. Now it is also used in web searching and auto web tasks. Now, XML is also used in the implementations to make electronic data interchange for more accessible for information interchange, business transactions, business to customer transactions, etc. etc. It is also used in metadata and other general applications. So it has had so many wide applications due to its flexibility. Now, XML provides a portable and a structured information types for display on pervasive computing devices such as PDAs, personal digital assistants, or cellular phones, and others. Now, let us see what is the difference between XML and HTML. Now, well, HTML is static, XML is dynamic. So, what it means by static and dynamic is that in a web page, the content when loaded on the server page is rather different each and every time, but in static, the content remains the same. When we come to the language type, XML is rather case sensitive and has its own uses its own user defined tags, while HTML is not case sensitive and has predefined tags. So by case sensitive, what I mean is that uh, in XML, tag with begin with a capital B and a begin with a small b is complete two different tags, but In HTML, that is rather not the case. So suppose if you're going to use a body tag, you can type it in capital BODY, or you can type it in small body. So it doesn't really matter in HTML whether you use a capital or not, but in XML it does. Now HTML has predefined tags, so you can't really name your own tags like begin, end. So it has to be predefined in the HTML library, which are like body, break, space, subscript, superscript, etc. When XML, it allows the that much flexibility so that you can define your own tags. Now, what is the purpose of HTML and XML? HTML is mainly used for presentation of data, while XML is used for transfer of data. And also HTML does not offers native object support, while XML does not. So when we come to the learning curve, like HTML is comparatively easier to learn than XML. Now let's look into the XML from the Android Studio version. Like Android Studio uses XML, so it has XML has rather various types of files in Android Studio. Some of them are layout XML files. Layout XML files are used to define actual UI, user interface of our application. So UI means basically what the user interacts, what the user sees in the application. So it holds all the elements or the tools that we want to use in our application, like text views, buttons, and other UI elements like password numeric, and email, etc., etc. Now we also have manifest XML. This XML is used to define all components of our application. It includes the names of our application packages, our activities, receivers, services, and permissions that our applications need. For example, suppose we need to use the internet in our app, we need to define internet permission in this file. Then only it goes and asks the mobile that can it have application, can the application have internet access. Now that is what you look at when you click on permission needed. Like when you run an application, location is needed. When you run Google Maps, you need location, you need data. So that is what the permission, that is where all the XML files if are stored if we use Android Studio. So the another one is strings XML file. This XML file is used to replace hard-coded strings with a single string. We define all strings in this XML and then access them in our app, like the activities or in the layout XML from this file. Now, this file enhances the reusability of the code. Suppose if you're going to use one particular hard code string and suppose we need to use it again and again. So we're going to store it in the strings.xml file, then we're going to import it from there directly. No need to code the whole part of it, just one single line of it. Now we also have styles.xml. So this XML file is used to define different styles and looks for the UI of our application. We need to define our custom themes and the styles in this file. Now we also have color XML. This file is used to define the color codes we use in the app. Like we have the hex codes which we use in the app. I'll show it to you guys later in the Android Studio. What does the like the hex code? Where do we have to use it, etc., etc. Now we simply define the color in the file and we use them in our app directly. Now we also have a dimensional XML. Now this XML file is used to define the dimensions of views. Suppose we need a button with 50 dp, which is also dp also means density pixel. So that is the unit of measure in Android Studio. Then we need a button with 50 dp height, and then we need to define what is the value of 50 dp in the dimension. Then we can use it. So once if we design, you can use it as many times as you want. Now we have other XML files like drawable XML files, which stores the pictures. So we have other XML files like that. Now let's look into the different layouts of the Android Studio. Now what is a layout? A layout is the visual structure for the user interface. So layout is basically where you put all your elements. This There are different kinds of layouts. There are exactly 7 layouts. Now let's look into each one of them. Now, linear layout is a view group that aligns all elements in a single direction, vertically or horizontally. Now let's go into the relative layout. Relative layout is a view group that displays elements views in a relative position. Now what it means is that elements are always relative to each other. Suppose if we in a relative layout, a text box and a button box are always relative to position. So if we move a click button, we're also going to move the text button. So now let's look into the table layout. It is a view that groups views into the elements into rows and columns. Now suppose you have 100 elements. Then what if you table.h layout is going to do is that it's going to create a 2D matrix and it's going to place them in that. Now what is absolute layout? And it enables you to specify the current exact location of its elements. Now what do you mean what do you mean exact location? Like we have to specify it is 50 dp from the left, 50 dp from the top, 100 dp from the bottom, like that. Depends on what is the size of the application you're using. No, what is frame layout? It is a placeholder on the screen that it can be used to display a single view. Now we also have list view. List view is a view group that displays lists in a scrollable items. So basically you can scroll down and down, or you can keep endless items, but there is always place for a new item. Now we have grid view. It is a view group that displays two elements in 2D or a scrollable grid. It is something similar to a list group but in 2D. Now let's look into the attributes for a button or a text box. Now we have different type of buttons, text boxes. For example, in text boxes we have plain text, input text, text box, email, phone number, etc, etc. So these are all different kinds of text boxes. Now in buttons we have image button, click button, checkbox, etc and etc. So all these are different kinds of buttons which are present in XML or the XML of the Android Studio. Now each and every button or each and every element to say has a different ID. Now what is this ID? Why is it important? Now ID is like the identification. It is like the Aadhaar card for you. So it is basically used everywhere in Java. So the IDs of each element is used in the Java to get values for each button. So suppose if we enter something in the input text, so we have to get that data and process it somewhere. So how are you going to access it? You're going to use the ID of the input text box and going to access it. Then you're going to run some code and then you're going to output it like output it with a different value. Now that is where the idea comes. It should be completely different for each and every element. So if and only if it is same, then there'll be a pretty big problem of when to which from which element you should extract the information from. Then we have width and length. That is basically the width of the element and the length of the element. This can also be used and measured in dB, or there is another option called wrap content. Now wrap content, what is wrap content? So it basically does is just wraps the content. Like if the content is small, it decreases the size of the element. If the content is big, it increases the size. So basically the length and the height vary according to the uh, size of the uh, text on the element. Now we have other attributes like visibility, on click. So so if we have three parts of the code, three types of XML views in Android Studio. One is a code view, one is a split view, and one is a design view. I'm going to show you the difference of all these three in the Android Studio implementation. Now what so basic Android Studio XML code is Android colon attribute name, and then we assign the value of it. For example, if you want to change the text size of an input text or a text view, we're going to use Android text view to 20 dp, 30 dp, 40 dp, or whatever might be the size you want it to display. Now let's go into Android Studio and let's look into implementation of two codes. So basically, what are the two codes? We're gonna make a click button counter, which increases the counter whenever we click on it, and we're gonna make a toast message appear. And the other code is like we're gonna make a toast message appear whenever we type and submit in the input text box. So let's go into Android Studio and look into the implementation. So this is the Android Studio, guys. This is the XML part of the Android Studio. This is what the application will look like, and this is where you can design the application. And this is like the X-ray part of the application, which will you guys will see. This the use of this X-ray is like, suppose if two elements overlap each other, so you will be able to see the two elements over here, but might not be able to see the there are two elements present at that particular point. So let me show you an example. Suppose if we have an image view, now let's go. So the image view, and then we place a button. So sometimes what happens is this button will be overlapped by the image, or the image will be overlapped by the button. But in the X-ray vision, you can see that this is the image view and this is the button. We click on the button will highlight, then we click on. So that is the use of this XML. So let's delete this. So as we've talked about in the PPT, we have different views: the text view, button view, image view, recycle view, scroll view, etc., etc. Then we have different types of text, buttons, layouts. So first let's go to the layouts. So layouts, these are the kinds of layouts we have: constraint layout, guideline layout, linear layout, frame layout, table layout. Then again we have a grid layout, list view, grid view, relative layout. So, but one of the most used are constraint layout and the linear layout. Those are the basic. For today, we'll be using constraint layout. So now let's check into the what all elements are there. Suppose this is a text view. So what is a text view? It just displays us whatever text we want to display. Text view, hello world. We can alter this text however we want. I'll show it to you guys later. Now then again we have plain text. Plain text is like the input box of our application. So now one thing you guys need to note is that whatever elements are there present over here will always be listed here. Suppose if you're looking for this hello world and you don't know where to find it, just go here, click on hello world, and it'll highlight this. It's vice versa. So if you want to look for hello world in this, then you can find it over here. So click it over here and it'll highlight over here. Click on name, it'll highlight over here. So that is how it works. Then we have password. Password is the, suppose for sign up, suppose if we create a sign up page, then we'll have a username, email ID, and a password. The password, this text field can be used there. Suppose if you want the password to be only numeric, then we can use this. This is for the email address, phone number, etc., etc. So those are one of the kinds. Then we have buttons. Buttons, there are different types of buttons. Buttons is the normal one-click button. Then we have the image button, which has an image but is like a button too. So we have an image, and but when we click on it, it works in the application. Chip group is like when you want to in your mobile phones, when you want to turn off your Bluetooth location, there's kind of button, right? When you click on it, it turns right, and once you click on it again, then it turns left. So that is the kind of chip group and chip button. Then we have the normal checkbox version, uh, normal checkbox version, tick box. Then we have radio, toggle, etc., etc. Then we have the image view, web view, all the other. These are the layouts which are present, and this is the layout. This Google palette has an ad view. Like suppose if you build an application, you are going to place some ad on it. Then you can place the ad, this ad view part over here. Suppose if you want to configure a map, then you want to place a map view over somewhere in your. So then again we have recycle view, scroll view, etc., etc. Now let's get into the constraint part. Now, what will happen if you don't constrain a particular element? What will happen if you constrain a particular element? See, this is how you do a constraint. The constraint can be done with respect to the whole layout, whole application, or with respect to this button with respect to another input element or not, like that. Suppose if we don't constrain a element, then what will happen is when we run the application, whichever side the button is not constrained to, it'll fall off to the other side of the uh, application. So that is why it is to ensure that the application has a stable view. We put up constraints for each button. Suppose we have different kinds of views for the XML. So one is the design view, which will give us the outlook of how the XML, like the application, will look. Suppose if you don't want to use the design and you want to only code it, so you can actually code the whole part. Let me show you how it works. Let's just delete everything. Okay, delete, then again delete. So if you see, before we had so many elements, as soon as we delete it over here, these also got in the constraint layout component tree also, the elements got deleted. Suppose if we add a button, see now wait, before that, see, now we've deleted, we only have a text view. Now let's go to design and add a button. Once we add a button, but once we add a button, you have a basic code for the button. So basically what the Android Studio does is it gives us the basic, we just have to place it on the design part and code on itself of what it wants to do. Okay, now while placing a button, see, I'll place another button. You see these gray lines, right? So these gray lines allow you to align and position each button according to your own need. Suppose if you wanted both them in straight line, this will align them in straight line. If you want them in horizontal line, put them in horizontal line. So that is how you use this. See, sometimes deleting an element can be not so easy, can also be pretty hard, because whenever you go and want to delete a element, sometimes it goes and selects a constraint and then deletes the constraint itself. So what you can do is, for deleting a button or a element, is you can click on it, this will highlight in the component tree, then just go right click on the component tree and delete it. So that will delete the whole button. Now deleting, there is another thing you have to keep in mind. Suppose we have constrained it over here, constrained it over here, and then we've constrained it over here. Now we've constrained it, three parts we've constrained it to the layout. Then we had constrained one of the constraint to the hello world part. Now the hello world part is what we've deleted it. Suppose if we delete it, so what do you think will happen to the constraint? It will get lost, because it's not been constrained to the application, but instead it's been constrained to the other element. So once you delete an element, whatever is related to the element, that will be deleted. See, suppose if you want to see, only the button is left. Now only the button is left, the text view is gone. So that is how the deleting works. Now if we want to look into the attributes, see, this is how it will actually look. Suppose if you want an attributes bar, this is where you'll find the attributes. You just have to click on it and then you'll find this kind of column. So this has major four parts: declared attributes, layouts, and the common attributes, and all attributes. So basically declared attributes is whatever you've declared in this, like layout, like this button's width, height, constraints. Then we've declared the button ID, then the text on the button, etc, etc. Then we have the layout, like the constraint layout. Suppose if you don't want to constrain using the mouse, you don't want to drag it along everywhere, what you have to do is just click on this and it'll remap to the closest one. That's how it does. So suppose if you want to delete it, just want to press delete, That's it. So like that. Okay, that will give us the layout. Once we suppose if we have a layout, then it will give us the constraint names wherever and whatever is given. Then we have the wrap content. These are the attributes which are given to the button. Now we have some common attributes. The common attributes may differ from element to an element. Since the button we click on it, we have on click function. What on click function does is that if suppose if we have a function in the main javascript main java file, then suppose if we give that function name over here, then when we click on the button in the application when it's running, when we click on it, it will actually run the file, like run the function while click. That is what on click means. So this background paint, what it does is just gives a background to it. See, I've given it a red, so it changes the background to red. Like that. That is how this background color works. See, background tint. So background tint mode is another variable. See, add. That's it. Just update it. Let's just change it to white. So these color codes are always in hex code. White. Yeah. So FFFF is 6Fs is white. So that is hex code for white. So it changed back to white. So that is how it works. Then let's go to all attributes. This all attribute, what it does is it gives us all the attributes which can be applied to the particular element. So these are all the attributes. Let me show you something about visibility. So visibility, as its name suggests, it will decide the mode of the visibility. So suppose if you put visible, it will be visible both on the X-ray and the button, the layout, uh, application layout. Suppose if you put invisible, then what will happen? It'll be there, but it won't be visible for us. So it'll be there on the XML part, and it wouldn't be visible in the application part. Then if we select gone, what will happen is it will completely won't be visible here or here, but it'll instead go to a corner over here. So let's go down and let's just put it back to visible. Yeah, so that is what the attributes are. These are some of the attributes, but these length, layout, span, row weight, row gravity, all this are attributes which can be applied to it. So this is not the only way to add the attributes. We can also add the attributes over here. See, suppose we have text. Text is basically the whatever the text is present over here. Suppose we have button. The button, we have Android text button. Suppose if we change it to click the button, then in the design it will change to click the button. So that is what basically the Android text means. So here we have ID, as I've told, it's unique. It should be unique for every element, since the ID we use it for the use it in the Java file for some calculations if any needed. Then we have layout width. What is we are in the layout width and layout height? We have wrap content. What is wrap content? Wrap content is basically it changes the size of the element based on the content present. Suppose if we put click the button, the size is this much. Then we put suppose if we put button, then the size will change. The size changed. So that is how it works. Okay. Now let's get. See, I'll show you another interesting thing. See, here we have visibility, right? Right. Let's just change. Let's just change the color to black. See, black. Now in the design part, also it becomes black. like that. That is how the code, basically the code and the design part are the same, but here it gives us the detailed version of whatever, what is present, what is not present. And this is the layout, this is the background tint. Background tint is the background color, whatever is present. Then we have the text, whatever is present on the button. Then we have the visibility of the button. Then we have the layouts, which are constraint layouts, which are present for, like, the bottom of this, the bottom of the button is connected to the bottom of the page. And then we have the end of the button. So those are the four constraints which are present over here. See, one, parent off, start off, bottom off, top off, end off. So those are the four constraints. Suppose if we have any animation also, we can add the animation over here. See, auto link, content. So accessibility, alpha, all these can be added. Animation can be added in them. So let me show you another thing. Okay. So this is another view, just to see this view and layout code. Suppose if we want to see the code design change as we code it. So this is how it happens. So that's it. So this is a split view is used in that. Okay. Now I'll show you another thing. See, now this layout validation. What does this layout validation? What layout validation shows us is that how the application looks while, if it is given in any app, or when we run the simulator, or is it then downloaded by anyone. This is how the app looks. That is the basic preview which this layout validation. If we have any constraint problems, everything that will be given by the layout validation. That will be just present over here. Suppose by mistakenly if we close uh, we have the Java file over here which has this whole the coding part. Suppose we by mistakenly close the Java part. So how do we open it? Where is it stored? So Java is stored under app Java basic XML or whatever the file name you put. Then we go to the main activity and then we get it back. Then similarly for activity main, we have resources res. Then we have the layout. Layout mein we have activity main XML. So that is where you can find both the files, activity file and the main file. So now let's get into this. Okay. Now let's build an app which shows us no matter how like the number of times we click the button will show us the number of times we've, like, if we click the button once, it'll show us 1. We clicked it twice, it'll show us 2, like that. So let's first position it and change the name. Let's go to the code, change the name, click counter. Okay, then click counter. Then let's add a text view. Yeah, this time text view, I'll show it to you guys here. Yeah, the text view has text. Now let's change it to 0. Now the 0 is becoming pretty small, right? So let's go to the code, add an element, and right, let's add the attribute text size to 40 dp. dp is the measure of the measure unit of measure in Android Studio. Let's constrain it. Yeah, okay. See, suppose if we move counter, then 0 also moves. 0's position is this. So previously was that, now it is this. So based on click, since we've made 0 constraint to the click counter, we've whenever the click counter is moved, 0 also moves accordingly. Okay, let's go and check the IDs. See, the IDs are text view 3. Let's just change it to text box. Then we have the button. Let's just change it to click counter button. See, now since we've changed the ID of the button to the counter button, and we've changed the ID of the text view to text box. Okay, now the text box, one of the constraints of the text box constraint is given to the click counter. So what we'll do is, okay, code, see, the button. Now the ID of the button is changed, right? So we have to change this ID also for the constraint to be valid. Otherwise it will show like this. So now what is the ID of the button? Counter button. BTN. Now check the design. See, it is back to where it is. See, that is how the constraints work. Now let's go to the main activity and let's just introduce some variables. Private and counter. We'll set it to 0. Then let's give a button variable btn. Then let's just give the text variable variable txv. Okay, now let's code some part of it. Okay, now what we'll do, we'll just we'll assign a value to button. Okay, now find view by id r.id dot what is the button click counter, right? Counter button, right? Counter button. So counter button. So what basically we're doing is that we've declared a button variable btn with button. That is what we're doing here. Then find view by id. I've said, right, id is important since we'll be using in Java. See, this is where we use it. We're finding an element with the name of with an id of counter in the resources. That is where the XML part is. See here, resources layout. That is where the counter button is present. Then we'll do the same for text button, text view, find view by id r.id. Then we have text box. Now what do we want to happen? When we click the button, the text view should change to the number of times we've clicked the button. So what we'll do is btn dot set on click listener new view on click listener. See, now what this thing is, like, it's setting when we click on the button, this particular operation should be performed with variable this. Now we've once we've clicked on this part of the code will the Android Studio itself will code it for you. Then we will increment the counter. Then we'll set the text to the times we've clicked the number of times we've clicked the button. So number of times we've clicked the button is equal to counter, right? So integer dot toString, then set it to counter. So basically what it's doing is it's changing the txv variable to setting the text to integer, which is equal to counter. So now let's run the app. Now what we for some of the guys who just started Android Studio, there might be a problem in this. See, because here so when you click on it, it'll show no target devices to run it on. So what it does is what you have to do is you have to click on Avd Manager. So Avd Manager is like the managing device for the simulator. When we click on the Avd Manager, this is what it will show. I'll show 1 minute. So this is what it will show for the Avd Manager. So in the Avd Manager, since I have downloaded Pixel XL, then this is what it will show. But for you, you have to create a virtual device. Once you click on create a virtual device, there'll be a virtual PXL. There'll be a list of values which you have to choose from. Then from there you have to download each and every Android Studio version, like Android version, Lollipop, Marshmallow, Rio, Oreo, R, etc. All those you have to download. So now what will happen is, now since we've run, I'll show you the output. 1 minute. So this is the output we've been getting. So the emulator, when we click on the counter, it changes to 1, then it changes to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So now the number of times you've pressed it, is the number of times the counter will increase. We've 8, then we've clicked it, 9, clicked it, 10. So similarly, as long as you press it, it'll increase. So that is what will happen. And then let's code for a part where now let me tell you another thing. We Suppose if you want an what do you call, an custom image. Now the custom image can't directly be taken from the Google. We have to download it, and just we have to paste it in the resources part. Drawable. Drawable has the 2 XML files. Layout has 2 XML files. Then we have values. So in one of these files, you have to place the image, and then we have to import it from there. So when you put an image view, there'll be an option for you where you can select the image. So now let's try and code for a part where we'll have where we'll enter a text, and that text will be given out as a toast message. So now what is a toast message? A toast message is something suppose when you sign up for something, then when you enter the password, there is a column for password, and then we have a confirm password. Suppose if you enter in two different passwords in both of them, in both of the elements, then there'll be a pop-up message called toast, like the password doesn't match. So that pop-up message in the application is called toast. It's make using toast. So let's just delete all of this. Delete. Then we'll delete this also. Delete. Yeah. Now let's place a new button. So whenever you place it, there'll be lines, so you can orient it yourself. Then let's place the plain text. Since why are we pasting a plain text? Because we need an input from the user, like what is the toast message you want to give to the people. So that is why that is where you have to use this. So constraining is very important. Okay, now let's go to the code part, and then let's first give the button ID to submit button. Submit btn button. Now let's give this wrap content. Then we will have wrap content. Then see, similarly, since we changed the button to ID to submit button, you have to similarly change it here also. Submit button. Then we'll change the edit text name, text person name to text input box. Now this is already then now let me show you another thing. We don't need any text, right? So since once the user wants to enter, there shouldn't be any text, but we want something to tell him that this is what you have to enter. Now what this is where one of the attributes comes in. That attribute's name is hint. What hint actually does is, wait, I'll show you. Enter the input. So once you go to the design, you can see I'll so what happens is enter the input. So what will happen when you click on it, uh, like when there is nothing in the field, it shows enter the input, but once you type something, the enter the input part goes off. So that is what hint's function is. Now let's change the name of the button to submit. Then we don't have any text. Then suppose if you want to change wrap content id box, okay, suppose if you want to change the color of the text, like color of the uh, input box, background we want it to be what, blue. No, that's good. So let's change it to white. Let's change it to black. So it'll change up to black. See, white. Now let's change it to black. It'll change up to black. So this background always accepts only hex code. Suppose if you type blue, there won't be any change. See, it'll just go back to white. So there won't be any change. So if you want any change, you have to type in the hash code, hex code. So let's just keep it back to F. Yeah. Now this is what we've designed it, and then let's just pull it down a bit. Yeah. Okay. This is good. Now let's go and code a bit of it. Now this is the previous part. Let's just take it out. Yeah. So once you see in Android Studio, there's another thing. Suppose if you make a mistake, see, I don't delete off this part. I'll show you. Or see, yeah, I won't delete that part off, but I'll delete the rest. See, it'll show an error, but also when you click on it, it'll show you the ends. This is opening over here. This is ending over here. So that is another great thing about Android Studio. Just shows your mistake and opening and closing, some basic things which are minute but very important. Now let's just code some part of it and okay, private button. Then we have the edit text. Let's change it to text one. Wait. Text view text one. Now let's see what is the ID of the button, like what should be the content of the button be. The content of the button, like r.id. The r.id part is very crucial since it is searching for that particular button in the R using the ID. So now when we click on the button, what should happen? is what we're coding right now. So button dot set on click listener, new view on click listener. So this is what it does. Then inside that we're using text1 is equals to edit text, find view by id, r.id dot input box. Now then now you might get a doubt that why are we declaring this inside the on click button listen, but previously we've done that txv outside the border. See, you want the toast message to change when you change the input, right? So if suppose if we put this text edit text find view by id input box outside the on click button, then what will happen is it'll change like it won't once you enter a value it'll remain that, and once you click on it only that button only that will be given. But when you click on button several times when the application is going on, you want your message to be changing. So that is why uh, we are giving the text one inside the on click button listen. Then we give toast. Toast is the thing. Toast makes toast is the one variable which makes the message pop up. Now we want to toast to make a text which is in main activity dot this. Then we want it to add suppose if you want to add something to the variable, like suppose we have text one, we want to add some previous text to it. Suppose I type Murli in the text box, we want welcome Murli. Welcome Murli is what the pop-up should say. Then we add welcome. Then we add the text, but right now we only want what the text it wants to say, right? Like only what the input in the box should be given. So now this text one we have to change it to get text. Now this text box we're getting it from the text one, and then we're changing it to a string. See, since we don't know what will be there, it might be a number or whatever, so we're changing it to a string, and then we're making the toast dot length. Now the length part has two, length short and length long. Now what length short and length long do is, like length short gives shows up the message for a short duration of amount, while length long gives it up for a long duration of amount. This is what the toast does. But to show the message, we have to give it a show function. Now that's it. Let's build the application. So now the application has been built, and then what we do is we just enter the input Murali, then we submit it. This is Murali. Then suppose since the reason why we've given text inside the on click button is this is Murali. Yes, then we click on submit, then we get this is Murali. So this is the change we've been expecting using due to the, like, this is the reason why we've kept text one inside this on click button. Now that's it, guys. So we have we have other options like gradle. All the options will be present on this. You just have to look closely. I'll show you another thing. Suppose if we only have app, close the XML, then it's not like say project, then we go app, then we go resources, then we go layout. So you just have to know what is before starting everything. So click on the XML, it'll be there. There's nothing like it'll disappear. There's nothing disappearing unless and until you delete it on your own. So that's it, guys, for today. Hope you enjoyed the session. Thank you.